All right, so today we are diving deep into Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, a classic.
It is. I feel like everyone who's into personal finance or just, wants to get better with money has probably read this book.
It's like a rite of passage.
It is. And we are going to uncover the wisdom in this book that's helped so many people, like, rethink money.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about Kiyosaki is he uses these two perspectives, right?
Yeah.
His own father, the poor dad, and then his friend's dad, the rich dad, to sort of frame these financial lessons.
Yes, and it's so interesting to contrast those two because you see, like, two very different approaches to money.
Right, and it's not about saying one is right or one is wrong.
Exactly.
It's really about highlighting those different mindsets.
Yes, it's about examining your own beliefs about money that you've picked up along the way.
Yes, beliefs you might not even realize you have,
Exactly.
like those unspoken rules like go to school, get a good job, work hard, you'll be set.
Right. You just do that, and then magically everything will work out.
Yeah, and Kiyosaki's like, hold on, what if there's a different path?
What if there's another way?
A different way of looking at this?
Yes. And he illustrates this so well,
Yeah.
right? Like the story about his first business venture with his friend, Mike.
Oh, yeah?
I have to admit, I chuckled when I read that story.
The toothpaste incident? It's
Yes.
just such a classic example.
I mean, they were just kids.
But they already had that entrepreneurial spirit.
They did. They
Yeah.
saw their friends with money, and they were like, we could do that too.
Exactly. They wanted to get in on the action.
Okay, so wait. For those who haven't read the book, break down this toothpaste scheme for us.
So they basically had this idea to make their own toothpaste.
Okay.
Like they were mixing white powder in milk cartons. They even had a little production line set up.
Oh, my God.
I know, in Kiyosaki's driveway.
I can only imagine their parents' reaction.
Well, Kiyosaki's dad, the poor dad, saw it as a teachable moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he used it as a way to teach them about counterfeiting ethical business practices.
Makes sense. Got to lay down the law.
Right, exactly. But you know, it's interesting. Rich Dad saw it as a learning experience.
Okay, how so? Did he think it was a good idea?
Well, no, I mean, they got shut down pretty quickly.
Right.
But he emphasized the importance of taking action, even if it means making mistakes along the way.
It's so important, right?
Okay.
Because so many of us are paralyzed by fear of failure.
Exactly. We don't even try.
We're too scared to even get started.
And he was really instilling in them this idea that failure is just part of the process.
That's part of learning.
You have to be willing to take risks, and sometimes you're going to stumble.
It's about getting back up again.
Exactly. It's not about avoiding failure at all costs. It's about learning from those mistakes.
So that's Rich Dad's approach to money.
Yeah, it's about being willing to take calculated risks and understanding that you're going to learn something from every experience.
So it's not about playing it safe all the time.
Right. It's about being smart, but also being bold.
And that brings us to, I think, one of the core concepts in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that's understanding the difference between assets and liabilities.
Yes,
This is huge.
it is. And I think a lot of people throw those terms around,
They do.
but they don't really understand the fundamental difference.
Right. And Kiyosaki would argue that this is absolutely key to building wealth.
He says it's the foundation,
It is.
understanding that difference between assets and liabilities.
Okay, so for those who need a little refresher, let's break it down.
Okay, so assets, put money in your pocket.
They're like little money-making machines.
Exactly. And then liabilities, they take money out.
They're like money suckers.
Yeah. They're constantly draining your account.
And here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Because Kiyosaki challenges this traditional idea of what an asset is.
Yes, he does.
He says a house, which many people consider an asset, can actually be a liability.
It's true, and that's where people get tripped up.
They're thinking, but my house, it's worth so much money.
Right. They're thinking about the market value.
Yeah, but Kiyosaki's saying, but is it actually putting money in your pocket?
Right. If you're constantly paying a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, all of that,
It adds up.
it does. And suddenly that asset is costing you a lot of money.
That's such a good point. It's making me rethink my whole perspective on home ownership.
I think that's what Kiyosaki does so well. He makes you question those assumptions.
He really does. He's like, what if we've been looking at our finances all wrong?
And that's where the real aha moments happen.
Right, when you start questioning those deeply held beliefs.
It's like you're opening yourself up to a whole new way of thinking about money
Exactly.
and potentially a whole new way of living.
And that new way of thinking, that new way of living, it often leads to escaping the rat race,
Ah, yes, the dreaded rat race.
which is another one of those key Kiyosaki concepts.
It's-
And it's something I think most of us can relate to, even if we haven't called it that before. We're talking about the rat race. So what is that? How would you describe the rat race?
So many people feel this way. They're working, they're earning money, but they still feel stuck, like
Yeah.
they're running on a treadmill just to make ends meet.
Just to keep up with the bills, yeah.
And Kiyosaki really captures this with that idea of the rat
He
race.
does, the middle class trap.
Yeah, you get a raise, you upgrade your lifestyle, you're not really getting ahead.
No, you're just kind of like stuck in that cycle.
Exactly. It's that cycle of working for money, spending that money, and not really building anything that's going to give you long-term financial security.
Right. And he says one of the biggest culprits, as we talked about earlier, is the house.
Yeah, the house can be a big part of that.
You think it's this great investment,
Right, because you're told it's an asset.
but is it really?
If it's eating up most of your income every month, is it helping you get ahead or is it actually holding you back?
That's the question. And I think Kiyosaki doesn't just identify the problem, right? He offers a solution.
Yeah, he gives you a way out.
He says break free from the rat race by building up your asset column.
Exactly. Shift your focus.
Okay.
Instead of working for money, have your money work for you.
Ooh, I love that.
Passive income.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
That's the key.
Passive income.
Hmm.
Okay, so how do we actually make that happen? What are we talking about here?
Well, Kiyosaki talks about a lot of different asset classes.
Yeah.
Real estate, dividend-paying stocks, businesses,
Okay.
intellectual property. The key is finding assets that generate income without requiring you to constantly trade your time for money.
So it's not about replacing your job necessarily, it's about adding to it.
It's about diversifying your income streams.
So you're not just relying on one paycheck.
Exactly.
You've got multiple streams coming in, whether you're working or on vacation.
Exactly. It's about creating freedom.
And that leads to Kiyosaki's definition of wealth, which I really like. It's not about how much money you have in the bank.
It's about how much time you can afford.
Exactly.
How long can you live without relying on a paycheck?
That's a really powerful way to look at it. It's not about, am I a millionaire? Is that my goal?
Right.
It's how much time do I have?
It's about security. It's about options.
And it's about creating a life where you're not constantly stressed about money.
Exactly. It's about peace of mind.
You have that cushion.
Yeah, have that
Yeah.
safety net.
You can take risks. You can pursue your passions. You're not trapped.
And he has this great challenge for readers. He says, calculate your number.
Oh, okay.
How many days could you survive financially without physically working?
I love that.
It's a real eye-opener.
It is, because you start thinking differently. Okay, if I had to live off of my savings, my investments,
Could you do it?
how long could I actually last? And that kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah, it makes you really evaluate your situation.
It does. And speaking of tools that can help us build that freedom, Kiyosaki talks about something that a lot of people might find intimidating.
Okay, what's that?
Corporations.
Corporations, yeah.
And I know what you're thinking, that's for like big businesses, CEOs.
Right, that's not for the average person.
But Kiyosaki breaks it down in a way that's actually very accessible.
He demystifies it,
He does.
which is so important because a lot of this financial stuff can feel really complicated.
Oh, for sure. And he uses this analogy, which I love, of Robin Hood
Oh, yeah, the Robin Hood analogy.
to explain how corporations, when used strategically, can actually help you reduce your tax burden and protect your assets.
Okay, I'm listening.
So Robin Hood, taking from the rich, giving to the poor.
Redistributing wealth.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki's saying corporations can help you redistribute your income in a way
Okay.
that minimizes your tax liability legally.
So it's not about evading taxes.
No.
It's about being smart
It's about understanding the rules of the game.
and using them to your advantage.
Yes, and this is where financial education comes in.
Right, you have to know what you're doing.
Because you can't just waltz into the world of corporations blindly. You've got to be informed.
And that's what Kiyosaki stresses throughout the book. Knowledge is power,
Yes.
especially when it comes to your finances.
So we're not just talking about making money. We're talking about keeping more of what you make
Yes, absolutely.
and then putting that money to work through smart investment
Making it grow,
and protecting it.
protecting what you've earned.
And one of the things that Kiyosaki emphasizes that I think is so important is this idea of financial intelligence.
Yes.
And he talks about 5 key areas.
He breaks it down, makes it manageable.
He does, because it can feel overwhelming.
Right? Where do I even start?
Exactly. But he's like, okay, here are 5 things to focus on. 1, making more money.
Okay, that's the fun part.
Right. Got to increase those income streams.
Yeah.
But then keeping more money.
Ah, yes, taxes. We were just talking about that.
Yeah. Smart tax planning, asset protection. And then, this is where it gets fun, making your money work harder for you.
Investment.
Investments, putting your money in things that are going to generate more income.
Building that asset column.
Exactly. And then, of course, protecting your money,
We talked about that.
making sure it's safe and secure. And then finally, and this one's huge, increasing your financial information.
Never stop learning.
Never stop learning. The world of finance is constantly changing, so we have to be willing to adapt.
It's like a muscle. You got to keep exercising it.
It is. It's about staying curious,
Yeah.
staying informed.
Yeah.
So we've got those external strategies, assets, liabilities, corporations. But Kiyosaki also talks about the internal game, right?
Oh, yeah, the mindset.
The mindset, the beliefs, the obstacles that we often put in our own way.
The self-sabotage.
Exactly. And he identifies three main culprits:
Hit me with it.
fear, laziness, and arrogance.
A triple threat.
They are.
Yeah.
And he argues that these internal roadblocks can be just as detrimental to our financial success as any external factor.
Sometimes even more so.
Right. Because if you're afraid to take a risk,
You're paralyzed.
you're never going to get started.
Exactly. You're stuck.
And he illustrates this so beautifully with the story about his friend Richard,
Oh, yeah, poor
who
Richard.
misses out on this amazing real estate deal because of fear.
He let fear get the best of him.
He listened to his neighbor's advice instead of trusting his gut,
Uh-huh.
and it cost him big time.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that sometimes our own minds can be our own worst enemies.
Absolutely.
Mm.
We let those doubts creep in,
Yeah.
and we end up sabotaging ourselves. It's like we get in our own way.
We really do. It's like we're standing on the sidelines of our own lives watching these opportunities pass us by.
Because we're too scared to make a move.
Exactly. We're afraid of failing, afraid of losing money. So we end up doing nothing.
And Kiyosaki, he doesn't want us to be passive observers, right?
No. He wants us to be active players.
He wants us to get in the game.
Take control. It's your financial life.
So how do we do that? How do we silence those voices of fear and doubt? Especially when it comes to money, it can feel so scary.
It's really about shifting your mindset from I don't want to how can I?
Okay, I like that. Turning those negatives into positives.
Exactly. So instead of saying I don't want to invest because I might lose money, you ask yourself, how can I invest wisely?
It changes the whole framework.
It does. It puts you in a position of power.
So you're not letting fear dictate your decisions.
Yeah.
You're saying, okay, there's a solution here. Let's find it.
Exactly. It's about being proactive.
I love that. And you know who else was all about being proactive? Colonel Sanders.
Oh, yeah. Talk about turning a setback into something huge.
He was in his 60s, I think, when he lost his business and had to start over.
Yeah, most people would just throw in the towel at that point.
Totally give up.
Yes.
But not Colonel Sanders.
He was like, how can I use my skills to create something new? How can I turn this around?
And the rest is history.
Exactly. But it wasn't easy.
I think he faced, what was it, like thousands of rejections?
Thousands before someone finally said yes to his fried chicken recipe.
That's insane. It just goes to show you persistence pays off.
It really does. And it highlights something else that Kiyosaki talks about. Mentorship.
Finding those people who've been there, done that.
Yes. Having a mentor, someone who can guide you, it can make all the difference.
It's like having a financial Sherpa, helping you navigate all the tricky terrain.
I love that analogy. And it's not just about finding someone successful. It's about being a good student,
Being open to learning,
asking questions, being willing to put in the work.
because financial education, it's not a one-time thing.
It's an ongoing journey.
Like anything else you want to get good at, you got to keep practicing, keep learning.
And the world of finance is always changing, so you have to be ready to adapt.
So we've covered a lot of ground today: assets, liabilities, corporations, mindset. But for someone listening who's feeling inspired, what's one actionable step they can take today?
Kiyosaki has this great advice. He says, start paying yourself first.
What does that mean?
It means before you pay your bills, before you buy anything else, set aside a portion of your income for your future self.
Put it in savings, investments.
Exactly. Make it
Yeah.
automatic so you don't even have to think about it.
I love that. Automate your savings.
It's one of the easiest but most powerful things you can do.
And it doesn't have to be a huge amount, right?
Even a small amount consistently over time can make a big difference.
And as you start to see those savings grow,
You're building momentum.
you're more motivated to keep
It creates a positive feedback loop.
and eventually you start to break free from that paycheck to paycheck cycle.
You start to build that financial freedom that Kiyosaki talks about.
It's about taking control of your money instead of letting it control you.
And remember, it's a journey, not a race.
There will be bumps in the road.
But the important thing is to keep learning, keep growing, and never give up on your financial goals.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's amazing how relevant his message still is.
It really is. His work continues to inspire people all over the world to take control of their finances and create the lives they want.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, shoot.
Remember those I don't wants we were talking about?
The things that have been holding you back.
Choose one, just one, and turn it into a how can I question.
Write that question down somewhere. You'll see it every day.
Let it be a constant reminder that you have the power to change your financial story.
Don't let fear or procrastination keep you stuck in the rat race.
Take that first step, no matter how small they're going, and start building your path to financial freedom.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Seek out mentors, connect with like-minded people, and never underestimate the power of continuous learning.
This deep dive may be ending, but we hope it's just the beginning of your journey to financial empowerment.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.